Hello and welcome to another episode of Inspired Living. Thank you so much for stopping by, and today you are in for a fun and inspired interview. Well, I guess I'm saying that about all the interviews that I'm doing, but this one was, again, really a special one. And I was talking to Kristy Halvorsen. Kristy is doing something that might not be as well known, at least I didn't know about it until recently. And this is called Coddiwompling. So if you've heard about it, well, great. If not, well, it basically is about living an inspired life and jumping full on into the unknown and living from one moment to the next. So these are my words. Kristy will talk about it differently. And, you know, for me, it sounds intriguing, it sounds inspiring, interesting, but really, I was also a bit, and I still am, to be honest, a bit scared about living from one moment to the next, because it's like, whew, well, what can I count on then? And that was one part, but then the other side is just I love how Kristy is talking about her journey, and that Coddiwompling really can look in any way you want. So it can look like what she's doing in traveling the world, or it can also be just living a normal life with a 9-to-5 job. It's really depending on how you see it and what is right for you. And it's different for everybody, because every one of us is at a different stage in life, and we have different inclinations and want to do different things. So, yeah, well, enjoy the interview. And I'd love to hear from you. If you want to share anything, just write a comment or get in touch and write me an email at verena@meinnächsterschritt.de. Well, it's a bit complicated, but you can find the contact info below. All right, enjoy. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview. And yeah, just for our viewers, so that they know, well, I met you officially, so to speak, in Prague at a conference, and I met you already before online, so to speak, in different webinars, and I was just really intrigued by your life, and so the whole series that I'm doing this interview for is called Inspired Living. So I was really inspired about your story and what you are doing at the moment. Well, at the moment, what you're doing, your, maybe, can I call it a philosophy? Coddiwompling?
Yeah, sure.
For people who don't know what Coddiwompling is, could you explain what it is, basically?
Sure, yeah. And thanks for this conversation too. So yeah, Coddiwompling, it used to be something I just did on my own. And the actual definition of Coddiwompling is to travel purposely towards an unknown destination. And another way to put it is to not predict your future, or to be open to any possibility.
Okay,
And
so can you just quickly, because it was really quick, so to travel purposefully?
Yeah, to travel purposely towards an unknown destination. So it's like, your direction, right? You're like, right now I'm going to head in this direction, but I have no idea where I'm going to end up. And I have no idea how I'm going to get there, and I don't even know where there is. So you have a purposeful direction, but you're totally open to anything that happens. And a really simple way of describing it is to live by instinct. It's a living by a feeling instead of by our thinking. So we have thoughts that are saying, you should do this, or you need to do this, or you need to make more money, so you should do that. And kind of leaving that lay, like hearing that, but letting it lay. And as much as possible, like living by the feeling of what's next. And just kind of quickly, like how I saw this was back in 2017. I did kind of an experiment. Could I live by following my heart? And so I had this dream of living on the road, but I didn't think I'd do it until probably 2020 or later. But some things happened in 2017, and I said, I'm just going to do this now. So I sold my house and almost everything I owned and bought a trailer, so a caravan, and set out. And I would only go somewhere if I knew to go there. And I wouldn't try to figure it out. I would just go somewhere and enjoy that place until I had the feeling to go somewhere else. And sometimes it would be someone would say, oh, this really cool place, or I'd read about it on the internet. But I wasn't focused on trying to figure out where I was going to go. I was just enjoying where I was at, and then knowing as soon as I knew where to go next, I would go there. And so I have ended up living my entire life like that. I thought it was just about travel in the beginning, but then I saw that it was about every single part of life. So business, career, relationships, retirement, you name it, health, all of it is a big Coddiwompling. And we can really kind of follow our common sense, follow our instinct, our gut feelings, and live life by that. And when we do that, it's so fun. Most of the time. Sometimes it gets a little tough, but it's so exciting because you never know what's going to happen. And it really is just living by what feels like common sense. But it's not so common because most people don't live like this. But it's really been quite a journey in all aspects of the word. So yeah, so that's what Coddiwompling is.
Mm-hmm. So, like, how was your life before Coddiwompling? You know, because it sounds all like, yeah, obviously you are living it now, but you know, for us normal people, it's like, okay, on which planet is she living? I want to go there. And like, how was your life before what you're doing, like Coddiwompling, and what happened?
Well, I'll tell you this. So even though I didn't call it Coddiwompling, it began. Well, first, let's go back. It's like we're all born Coddywomplers. We just don't know it. Okay. So we're all born. Like you think about kids. So I know I'm going way far back because you're like, how was your life before? Like, let's go back to when we were born. All of us. So we came out of our mothers, and then as we grew, we rolled over, we learned to crawl, we learned to walk. And if you look at little kids, they live through Coddiwompling. What they're doing is they're living by their instinct. You know, a little kid goes out and plays because he or she wants to go out and play. He doesn't say, oh, I need to improve my hand-eye coordination, or I need to lose 5 pounds, or any other reason. I feel like going to play, so I am. And then you look at kids too, and they can be so angry. You know, like they can get a toy stolen by a friend, and they're just so angry and crying. And then a minute later, they're happy and giggling. You know, and then a minute later, they're complaining because they're hungry. And then a minute later, they're hugging their mom or whoever. And it's like they can go in and out of emotions like that. They don't get stuck anywhere. And so that's another part of Coddiwompling. So I didn't see that until I was in my low 20s. I was an engineer, and I knew I didn't want to be an engineer. And something inside of me, it's a long story, but I'll keep it short. Something inside of me said, go be a firefighter. And I thought, that's crazy. And I said, no, thanks. And over 6 to 9 months, I kept getting, like, somebody was slapping me in the face saying, go be a firefighter. And I'm like, that's crazy, no. And finally, I saw it, and I said, you know, I'm going to go try this. Just give it a try. So I quit my engineering job and went and became a firefighter. And it was a massive pay cut. My whole family thought I was crazy. But my heart was pulling me that way. So I did it. And it ended up being the best decision of my life. And it was the best decision of my life, not because I went to be a firefighter. I loved it. It was my passion for many, many years. But I saw through that experience that I could follow my heart. And even I was the only one person that thought this was a good idea. Like my professors, my bosses, my family, everybody thought I was crazy. And I was the only one that said, no, I'm going to go do this. But I knew something deep inside that was where I was to go. And because I did that, I suddenly was like, oh, wow, this works. And so all through the rest of my life, I have friends and family said, I was always kind of a little bit odd. Like I would do things that didn't seem normal. But really it was because I made career changes, a couple more after that just seemed nuts. I made moves. Like I sold my house and moved, and it didn't seem feasible. But it was the whole time I was following, I used to call it following my heart. And I saw that we really can live by following my heart. And later on, I kept taking it further and further. And that's kind of where Coddiwompling began, was that experiment in 2017, which was the last big move, when I sold almost everything, bought a trailer, and quit my job as a firefighter, started coaching full time and just wandering the world. And it was kind of a buildup from what I'd learned through life, saying, nope, this has worked before, I'm going to go give it a whirl. And again, it was not all rainbows and butterflies. There's been some tough times. Like I've seen so much this last year and a half, and there's been tears shed, but I've seen so much about life. And that's where the Coddiwompling, I call it a movement, began, because I'm like, I can see how if everybody just Coddywompled in their own way, not saying you have to sell everything and move out into a trailer, but in life you can Coddywomple from right where you're at. And if you can live by your heart, your gut feeling, your instinct, your inner wisdom, it changes everything. And so that's why I'm kind of like wanting to bring this to the world. Is like, we can all Coddywomple. And it's going to look different for everyone, because it really is following something inside of you. It's just a feeling.
Yeah. Oh, I just love it, and I mean, I can see how you live Coddiwompling, you are just beaming, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So you say it kind of was then like an incremental thing for you?
Yeah, I mean, whenever I was asked to give a talk, it seemed like I always wanted to share. Again, like back in the past, I used to call it, follow your heart. That's what I would tell everybody, follow your heart. So, but I think, again, the way I see it, we were all born to do this as kids, right? But we've been taught by the world to do things another way. Like we've been conditioned by the world to, you've got to go to school and go to university and get a job and have 2.5 kids and, find a husband or wife and, work in a suit. And, like we've been conditioned. No matter where you live in the world, it might not be all those things, but we've been conditioned of how we're supposed to live life. Like we need to make money, we need to be successful. And what I'm seeing is, it might seem incremental, but what the incremental part is unlearning all that conditioning, unlearning what we've been taught of how life works. And so, but we are all natural Coddywomplers. Like nobody taught me this. When I had that thing happen in firefighting, where I left the engineering to go to firefighting, like it seemed like a really hard decision, And then I did that, and a year and a half later, I loved the job I had. And a year and a half later, I had this knowing that I lived in the east coast of Florida on the Atlantic coast, kind of near West Palm Beach, and it was kind of a big city. I didn't like it. I wanted more trees and rivers. And I had a great job, and I was well respected, and people thought I was going to be the fire chief there one day. And then I just walked away again. And that, again, was a big decision. Like, it really took a lot to do that. But it worked again. Like, I did it again. I moved to a city where I knew no one and took another job, but I had lakes and rivers and nature and a slower pace than the big city. And so then it was like, oh, wow, I did this again and it worked, So it's almost like the incremental part was me unlearning that there's a way, that when you're in a good job and you're well respected and there's a big future, that you should stay. Now, I'm not saying some people Coddiwompling would be staying in that job. It's different for all of us. But all I'm saying is it seems incremental, but it was incremental in the fact that I kept doing it and kept seeing how it worked. And that made it simpler the next time to be like, this has worked before. I think I'm going to do it again. But in essence, I was just unlearning all the stuff that we've been taught on how life is supposed to work. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love what you said, that Coddiwompling could also look like staying in the job,
Right.
like because for me, it was like Coddiwompling means doing what you did and what you do, giving up all the big things like a house and just travel the world.
Right.
So, wow, I'm surprised and intrigued. Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
Because it's different for all of us. So for me, Coddiwompling right now means traveling the world. And people ask, how long are you going to do this? And I've been saying the whole time, I don't know. It could be a couple more months, or it could be another 10 years or more. But all I know is I'll do this until it feels right to do something else. And when I know, okay, it's time to, I don't know, get an apartment, or who knows what it'll be. You know, maybe it's get a sailboat. I don't know. I have no idea what the next transition will be. But I know until then, it's no sense in thinking about it. Because in the moment, I'll know. You know, so who knows? Maybe I'll meet the partner of my dreams, you know, and settle down. I don't have no idea, you know, and that could be in the works right now, and I don't even know. But there's a flow to life. And so the way I see it is it's like a river. Like we're in a river, and we think, when I say we're in a river, most people imagine like we're in a kayak or we're in a boat or we're floating. But what I'm saying is we are the river. You know, like we're the water in the river. It's a metaphor. And if you think about a river, it just flows. It just goes. The water doesn't really have any control at all over where it's going to end up. It's along for the ride. But think about this. Even if there's a massive waterfall where you're falling thousands and thousands of feet or meters or whatever you measure distance in, and you're thinking, oh my God, that must hurt. But the water can't get hurt. It's a part of the river, right? I think if I was water, I think a waterfall would be amazingly fun. It would be exciting, right? Absolutely. But then there'll be times when the river is nice and calm and lazy and barely flowing. But it's all a part of the flow. It's part of the flow of life. So we don't need to work at it. We don't need to try to figure out where we go. Like as the water in the river, we're not like, okay, where are we going next? Like that would be crazy. Who knows where we're going next? We're part of the river. We're part of the flow of life. And the more we see that, we really don't have control, but we can live in the moment and be open to all the possibilities. And what comes up, that's where we go. If it means keeping your job and raising a family or you name it, or not. But instead of fighting the flow of life, you realize you are the flow. And there's really no way to mess it up. Like, can a river really? It can't mess it up. Like, even when there's a flood, the river goes out of its banks, but eventually goes back, you know?
Well, yeah. Yeah, I love it that we can't mess it up. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So how did you learn, so to speak, to take this decision? You know, like it sounds to me like the first big conscious one was you change from engineer to firefighter.
Right.
So how did you know that this was the right move or a significant move?
I didn't. That's the fun part. Like I said, everybody thought I was crazy. Everybody thought I was nuts. And I had shared it with some people that I'm like, I really feel like I should go into firefighting. Well, that's crazy. Like I had this pull there. And it was actually my step uncle who was a firefighter. And I was really having a tough time because it seemed like a really big decision. And he was like, you're young. Because I think I was 23 or 24. And he's like, you're young. You have your whole life ahead of you. What if you just went into firefighting? If you didn't like it, you'd go back. I was like, oh, that sounds so simple, you know? So I did. I just went. And I'm like, oh, well, if it doesn't work out, I'll figure out something else, you know? But it felt like a big deal. And it felt like my decision. But now I realize it was never my decision. I was in the flow of life. And like, I literally for, like, again, 6 to 9 months, I felt like somebody was slapping me on the face saying, go be a firefighter. And I kept saying, no, that's crazy, no. But there came a point where I couldn't say no anymore. I was just like, all right, I guess this is what I'm doing. And that feeling of, all right, I guess this is what I'm doing, that's how I live life now. I just don't, sometimes I'm human. I still get caught up in my thinking about stuff. I mean, it's normal. That's what humans do. But now I can more easily realize when I am eventually. Now I could be stuck up worried about something for a day or a week or a month, but eventually I'm like, oh, look at me. It's not my decision to make, you know, like I can really just go with what's that part of me that knows. And it's like either I don't know or I do. And sometimes I don't know. Sometimes I don't have a clue. And sometimes in that space, I just kind of stay in that space. And sometimes I take a step anyways. But again, it's all comes down to it's like common sense. Like we don't realize how much common sense we have. Like it really is that simple. But it seems against the grain. So going back to your question about the learning, like to me, that was the learning, was initially just realizing, oh, like it almost went from a big deal to being like, I saw like, oh, well, like I can go try this. If it doesn't work out, there'll be something else, I'm sure. You know, and so that's kind of I actually just, that's the way I live today too. Because we don't know, because when we say we don't know if it's going to work out, we don't even know what workout means, you know? So life isn't all rainbows and butterflies. So there's been some things that I've done that were really tough and brought a lot of tears. But looking back, they were perfect. In the moment, they might not have seemed perfect. But looking back, I'm like, oh man, that was perfect. That needed to happen. You know, like there was so much seen, or there was like, you know, like we don't know, like, for example, we've talked about jobs a lot, but we don't know. Sometimes common sense, right? So sometimes common sense says you need to put food on the table. It'd be best to go take this job, right? So you go take the job, but what if you met the man of your dreams at this job, right? Mm-hmm. And you're like, I did that job because I needed to put food on the table, but then I ended up meeting the man of my dreams. Well, like even if the job wasn't really all that fun, like it was there for a reason. But there's always a knowing where you're just like, okay, I gotta go do this. Does that help at all?
Yeah, absolutely. So okay. I'm wondering, how would you define common sense? You know, because it sounds so easy when you talk about it. Like, yeah, just do what your common sense says. So yeah. Some people might not really, you know, they might be in a situation where they really don't know what to do. And so what do you mean by common sense and how to apply it?
You know, when you said that, what came up was, I have a friend of mine that's joined me on some of my journeys, right? And it was so funny because she was like, you know, because she's married, she has kids, and she has a really stable life. And she started traveling with me. And we were in London a few months ago in the tube. And I'm really laid back. Like, I'm just like, oh, well, catch this one. That sounds good. Like, I'll just follow what my phone says. And we were on the tube. And if you've never been in the tube in London, when you're going down the escalator, you always have to stay on the right because there's people in a hurry. And they run down the escalators on the left or run up the escalators. So it's like, if you're not going to be moving, you move to the right and they come by. And I told her that. I said, you know, the first time I ever rode the tube in London, like, I didn't know that was a rule. I was just standing there and like people walked up behind me like, excuse me, move to the right. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And I quickly learned that you move to the right on the tube in London or you get run over. But because she was like, well, what if you don't know the culture, like, and you screw up? And I was like, well, like, you just say, I'm sorry, you know? And like people understand, and actually people want to teach you. Because like the people knew, they kind of intrinsically knew, well, if I knew any better, I wouldn't be standing on the left side of the, you know, in the tube. I would have moved over because that's what you do. So I didn't know. So that first person was just like, excuse me, move to the right. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. Move to the right. Like I learned, right? So it was common sense. So that's why I told her, I said, you can travel. I've traveled the world and most of the time I don't know the customs there, but I do know how to be human. And when you're kind of human and you're like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know. And like do it in a loving manner. Like people respond with love. right? Most of the time. And even if they were rude, it's like, oh, well, you moved to the right and no biggie. So it's like, that to me is common sense. Like, be a good human. Learn, you know, and I don't know. Is that a good example?
Yeah, I think so. What comes up is like, really what we did as children, like how we learned to walk, for example, I mean, we just did it. We didn't have somebody who told us what to do. We just tried stuff, and then yeah, usually it works. It works for me though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a great example because every human has learned to walk. And there's some people that, for whether it's a physical disability or something, for some reason they didn't learn to walk. It was a very small percentage. For the most part, it was probably 99 point something % of people were once born and didn't know how to walk and learned. And you're right, that was common sense. There was no textbook. There was no, all right, this is what you do. Like, you eventually learn to roll over, eventually learn to crawl, eventually learn to stand, and you're wobbly. But here's another thing with kids. How many times did each of us fall? Like, probably thousands of times. But so sometimes we fell and we cried. Sometimes we fell and we giggled. Sometimes we fell and did nothing but stand back up. Sometimes we fell and just lay on the floor a while, But we weren't like, you idiot. Look at that other baby. It learned to walk 5 months ago. What's wrong with you? Like, that's not what was happening. It was just like, oops, I fell. Whether I cry or smile or giggle or do nothing, like, eventually I'll stand up and try another step, whether it's today or tomorrow. But it's no big deal. But what if life is the same way? What if that's what we're all doing? Whether we're learning how to ride the tube or run a business or be in a relationship or raise kids or you name it. We're just learning life. And it's common sense. But the common sense is inside of us. So people think we need to read books and be taught. But what if we really could follow that wisdom in us? So whether you want to call it following your heart or following your instinct or following your gut feeling, but we all know that's what helped us learn to walk.
Yeah, yeah. And like what you said before, we all know to do that. And then we have all this conditioning and stuff that is coming on top of that. And then we think other things are important than following our heart and following our knowing. Then it's this, I don't know, this job and this money and whatever. So yeah. I'm wondering, because I remember that you said your uncle, he said, well, you're so young, so what have you got to lose, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Have you met older people, who maybe say, I mean, you were young, so good for you. You could, it was easy for you to make this decision, but I'm now old and, I don't have that much time left. So what if I do take the wrong decision? Have you ever had that? Or what would you say to that?
Yeah. Well, it's cool because I just had a client that started a couple weeks ago, and he's in his either mid or late 60s. He's Coddiwompling with the best of them. Like, that's why he hired me, because he has a new idea that he wants to. He's in retirement now, but he wants to come out of retirement with his new idea.
Okay.
And he said that. He's like, some people are like, you're too old to be doing this. And he's like, what's age? Like, what a perfect time. Like, because like, I love his take on it, because he was just like, do you know how much I know now? Like, I've lived 60 something years. Like, yeah, what a better time than to go out and try something new, So there's no age. There's no age where you can Coddywomple more. Because I almost hesitated. I was about to say begin Coddiwompling, but realize we all begin Coddiwompling as babies. So we've been doing it our whole lives. It's just most people have forgotten how. So all me and other Coddywomplers are doing are reminding people what they already know. So my client, who's in his mid-60s, he already knows how to Coddywomple, and he's up for it. And he's with me. Just we're remembering together. So everybody in the world is a Coddiwompler. It's just most of us have forgotten. And so it's just a matter of remembering how to do it. And how to do it is just living by the instinct.
Wow.
So yeah, there's no age limit on Coddiwompling.
Wow. And wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow. So your client, he kind of lived a normal life beforehand. Normal, like I can use air quotes here all the time.
Yeah. I mean, he had a long career, over a 30-year career. And he's been retired for about a year, and he's like, I'm going back in, you know?
Wow.
So, but yeah, I would say that he lived a pretty normal life. And yeah. But yeah, and he's just the most recent. He came to mind when you said that. But I used to live in Florida in the Southwest coast, which is where many retirees go. So early on, most of my clients were retired people, and it was so much fun. So I don't coach as many older people as I once did when I lived in Florida, just because that was the people that were around me. But yeah, this fits with anyone. It really does, from the youngest to the oldest. It's natural.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how does your life look now? And you also said that in the last 1.5 years, you learned so much. So what happened, and how is it now?
Oh man. You know, there's a running joke that everywhere I go is the most beautiful place I've ever been. I had a friend that I didn't realize it until it was probably 6 or 8 months ago, because I was like, oh my gosh, this is the most beautiful place I've ever been. And he was like, do you know how many times I've heard that? You know? And I think it's just, there's something about being present, you know? And that's one of the things I had to learn. And I feel bad, and maybe some of my friends will watch this and understand more, because I've shared it with a few people. Because when I'm with somebody, like I'm staying with some friends here in the UK, I'm with them. And then when I leave, a lot of times I leave, and I might not text and call. And I've shared that with a few people. I'm like, hey, listen, just a warning, because if you don't hear from me for many months, or I don't respond to your texts, like, I still care about you. But I have this, for some reason, I just do that sometimes with many people. But I think it's really about living in the moment, you know? And so, but the thing is, then once I'm back with the person, it's just like no time has passed. But my life right now is that, like, I'm really enjoying people. I'm really enjoying living and not knowing, you know, like, I don't know. I know as far as about 2 weeks out right now. And after that, I have no idea where I'll be. Like, I know my trailer is parked in Washington State, just outside of Portland. And I know on June 18th, I'll be getting in my trailer and going north to Canada. But what happens after June 25th, I have no idea. I have no clue. And to some people, that would sound really crazy and scary. And to me, it's like, I have no clue. I don't know. And so I'm really loving living in the I don't know, in all parts, not just traveling, but same with my business, same with my relationships. Like, I don't know. But it's like, it's not if you hear that, like, some people's like, I don't know, you know, like, it's really being cool with not knowing. Most of the time, every once in a while, it sneaks up on me and I can see I'm stuck on something, but I'm really enjoying that for the most part right now. That sounds really cool not to know.
So are you sometimes scared about the not knowing part?
I mean, I'm human, so it's weird, because I don't know if I would say scared, but every once in a while I'll catch myself worrying about something, you know. But what I've seen a ton, like I said, this last 1.5 years has been amazing growth, but I've seen a ton about what worry is. And worry is the greatest misuse of imagination known to mankind. Like, I can see that. Like, our imagination can do some amazing stuff. Like, we can create unbelievable things. You know, like, we can send people to Mars, and we can heal diseases, and that's all imagination. And then there's this other side of imagination that says, I wonder what bad things can happen in the future, and let me go wonder and worry about how I'm going to keep that from happening. But what I've seen is there's a few parts of that. One is we have no idea what's going to happen. I'm not good at forecasting the future, and you aren't. Like, there's nobody that has a real life crystal ball. So, but most of us spend so much time in the present moment worrying about these make-believe things that the chances of them happening exactly as we imagine them is like 0.0001%. But I used to do it. I know we can spend most of our waking hours worried and trying to figure out what to do with that. And so if you can see that it's just a message of imagination, and then also know that this inner knowing that we're talking about, like how you Coddiwomple, it is only in the moment. Like I can't plan how I'm going to Coddiwomple 2 days from now. I don't know. So, but if you can trust that you'll know in the moment, then it makes it so you're like, why waste my time imagining a crazy future and then imagining ways to get around this future that's imagined, when I can just live in the present and know and trust that whatever happens, I'll be able to figure it out. And so, but there's times when I forget, and that's what I'm saying. Even though I know this, I'm saying it to you, there's times where I find myself getting stuck and worrying. But now, like sooner than later, I snap out of it. Like I'm like, oh, look what I'm doing. And it's more, like I said, it's more like a smoke detector or an alarm. So it's like a sign that I'm not living in the moment. I'm not trusting that I'll know. So instead of worrying about it and over, like instead of getting myself worked up about this thing that I'm worrying about that I made up, I can come back and be like, all right. But it still happens. Believe me, it happens. I still get worried. I'm human. That's just part of being human.
So would you say,
go ahead.
Would you say it has lessened over time, like the worry part? So there's a learning curve. There's a possibility to.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like it can happen instantaneously, or it can happen, it can take a long time. And I felt like for me, it took quite a long time, but maybe I'm just slow. But the thing is, as soon as you can see and begin to trust this knowing, like begin to trust being able to follow your heart and know that you'll know in the moment, like when you can really see that is when it starts to drop, but yeah, I mean, even up to like just the past holidays, I was in a tough spot of worry, but eventually I came out of it. I was like, oh, look at me. Like, look at me being human again, So it's just, and like, there's nothing to do but see it. And then once you see it, you're like, oh, okay. And then start afresh, start anew.
Wow. And, like what probably a lot of people, me included, are interested in is like, how do you finance all that, like, because this seems always like the big question in life. First, before you ask yourself anything, first you need to ask yourself, how do I get the money? So yeah. How does it work out in your life?
Well, I mean, I have my own business, so I coach, so I do group programs, I do one-on-one, and I still make my money. But I find now I do what I really love to do, and I don't think about it. And I actually right before this, we were just on one of my group calls, and I brought that up because, a client of mine is really stuck on, I have to make money. And for myself, I was thinking how, when I started off in 2017, I sold almost everything I owned. And so I had a little bit of padding. Like I sold my house and literally almost all my stuff. And the way I live is very inexpensive because I don't have any bills. Like when I'm in the US, it's really cheap because I live in a trailer that is fully self-sufficient. So I can go live out in the woods and it's free, Sometimes I'll pay for a campsite. And when I travel, yeah, I pay for the flight, but I live very simply. Like I don't need much. And because another thing is because I've never really enjoyed shopping on material things. And now it's even simpler because I have nowhere to put them.
Exactly.
I'm traveling with a backpack. So you go places and get souvenirs. I don't even get anything. I don't even buy one trinket because there's nowhere to put it. The memories are really what we're after. Like those trinkets just remind us of something. So I don't spend much. I'm very frugal. And I have a business that I can run from anywhere in the world. So it all works out. But going back to what I saw just last week was I've been really okay with in the beginning, my coaching in my business didn't cover all my finances, but I had a little cushioning, and it wasn't a big deal. You know, I'm like, oh, well, I'm only going to do what I really feel like doing. Like, I'm not going to sell my soul to the devil and do work that I don't want to do. And it's worked out great. Like, I haven't dipped into my savings account since last year. Like, my lifestyle is being funded by my business, and my bank account is actually going up, you know, not by much, but a little every month. And I was thinking, could I have done that if I had the thought over my head, you know, how am I going to put food on the table? And I don't know, because I never had that thought in my head. So I can't say, could I have done what I did if I had? But I can say the freedom of not having that thought and really letting something beyond me guide me in how I do my work and what I do, it's worked out really well. Like, I don't spend a lot, but I don't have any worries about money. And it's the chicken or the egg. Do I not have worries about money because that doesn't make sense to me? You know? And if I did have worries about money, would be making money be as simple as it seems? Those are questions I can't ask, you know? But I can say that, going back to common sense, like, common sense has me live a certain way, both with money going out and money coming in. But that common sense has kept me just fine all along. Like, I've never had to go without, and I'm independently making my own way, and it's all good. But yeah, I do work.
Wonderful.
Hope that answered the question.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, you're just the living example of you don't need to worry about the money part. It's working out for you. So that's what I find really, really inspiring.
Yeah, but it's going with the knowing. Because I'll tell you this, I thought I would never work for someone again. And I do 2 things now. I run a business and I have someone I work for part-time. But I can tell you this, when I was offered the job out of the blue, I was like, yes. Like, I just knew it deep inside, right? It was not even a thought. And the next day, I was like, I've sold my soul to the man, you know, like... But it was funny because I only thought that for about 5 minutes. I was like, what did I just do? I like the freedom of running my own business.
Yeah.
And suddenly I said, what am I doing? I'm really excited about this part-time job. But it was cool because it was, for an instant, I had the thought of, what did you just do? That's not a part of the plan. Like, that never was part of the plan, to work for another person. But in the moment, it felt great, and it still feels great. And I'm still doing it. But that's just another example of going with the knowing. Because then the knowing in the moment was like, yes. And then it was funny how the next day it was like, what did you do? But there was a different feeling. There was a feeling of, yes, that's perfect. And then the other, it was an icky, like, me. The only reason that I was looking into the future, like, what if I don't have enough time to do what I want? And what if I have responsibilities that I'm going to have to change my lifestyle for? Like, that's the difference, is I could see that I was projecting in the future. Like, I was thinking about what ifs. But when it came down to it, of course, the part-time job sounded great in the moment. So can you see how it was like, I was triggered, like, oh, you're thinking about the future. This isn't the now. It's okay. And you're just got a lot of thinking, and it fell away. Can you see that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's beautiful.
And that's going back to what we were talking about before with worry. That's how it works now, where I can see through it. Whereas there might have been a time in life where all of a sudden I was like, you gave your soul to the man. Like, you're going to have responsibilities. Like, and I would have believed it, and maybe called back and said, never mind. But now I can decipher the difference. So yeah.
And it's also connected to what you said in the beginning about that Coddiwompling could take, you know, it can look anyway, like traveling the world, or like staying in your job at home.
Right.
Yeah. And that's
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I was really surprised when you said that. So that's like, wow.
Yeah.
So when people want to explore more about that and want to learn more about you as well, where can they go, and how can they contact you? Sure.
So right now I have 2 websites. My coaching website is YouRevolution, yourevolution.com. So yourevolution.com. And then I have a website for fun called Coddiwomple now. Coddiwompling. WOMPLENOW now.com. And I'm going to simplify. We're all about simplicity.
Cool.
So I'm probably going to simplify into one website soon, because I feel like I have two different worlds going on. But for right now, those are the two places. And they link together so you can find each other on each. But so that's it. And and I have on Facebook, I have you can like Coddiwomple now. And that's just, I put pictures up in stories there. But and I also have a blog. I send out a blog usually once or twice a month. So if you go to yourevolution.com, there's all kinds of cool stories I send out there.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I'm going to put all the info in the show notes under the video so people can contact you easily. So do you have any final words of wisdom that you want to really that you want the world to know?
Yeah, well, just know you can really just go with the flow, and you don't have to know what's going to happen or how you're going to get there. You don't have to know. In fact, it's really, really exciting to be living in the not knowing. So no, that's it right there. Just, you can Coddiwomple. Unpredict your journey. That's one of the sayings of Coddiwompling, is not predicting your future. Like, it's really okay not to know.
Wow. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, thank you so much, Kristy.
You're welcome. Thank you. This was fun.